Okay, so now working on my 4 identical pieces here. Before I truly get started, I want to say that I left these in their bags overnight, and then I took them out a little bit before 6 period and let them dry for a couple of hours. So by this time, a few hours later, they're nicely stiff. They're still flexible. You can see I can pinch it and mold that clay, moving that around. But it's going to hold its shape a lot better than when it was fresh out of the big bag and when I was first forming it. Now, for you, what you might do to ensure the proper wetness is like this. If I had made this in class and then I wasn't going to see it for an entire weekend, so let's say, 2-3 days before I would see this piece again, then I would make sure that it was wrapped up really well, because better to have it wet than have it get too dry. On the other hand, if I was going to see this piece the next day, right, or maybe even just if I had one of the block periods, it was only going to be 1 day in between, it's going to be in the cabinets. Instead, what I might do is I might just wrap it like that, so the air can get to it. It's not wrapped tight, so like that, or in the bag, just loosely. So it's not going to get entirely dry, but it's not going to be sealed tight. It's going to lose some of its moisture. If it loses too much of its moisture, you could re-wet it, as long as it's, not gone too far, as long as it's not gotten brittle. Okay, so let's take a look at the plan. Alright, here's the plan for these bowls. Let's take a look. How close are we? Well, we're kind of getting there. It's low and with a shape that's going out like this, but I think we can just refine it a little bit. So just like before, I'll do it a little bit on each one. Okay, here I would say the place where I want to start working is to elongate it a little bit and refine the edge a little bit more. Okay. Okay, so I was able to flatten the edges on all these guys. So now I think I'll worry about the shape a little bit more and some more smoothing in general. Yeah, right now the clay is sort of just at a perfect place for smoothing because it's it's firm. It's lost a lot of moisture. It's not so floppy anymore, but it's still soft enough that even without adding any water, I can kind of just push this clay around a little bit, just making those thick spots a little bit thinner, just gently pushing the clay from the thick spots into the thin spots. I want to smooth the clay out as much as possible because the smoother I get it when I'm in this phase of my construction, the less I'm going to have to sand. And sanding, although it works really well, can make things very inconsistent. So in other words, you can sand too thin into an area if you're really trying to get out bumps. So make sure that it's consistent now with your fingers. Try and smooth out any deep pits that you might have. Maintaining the shape of this is about the hardest thing because it'd be so easy for it to crunch down and just become flat. But we don't want that. We want it to have some bit of height to it. And before I'm done, I will really reinforce that. I'm working right now to raise the height up just a little bit, because even though these are relatively flat, relatively low, I do want them to have a little bit of height to them, a little bit of shape to them. Okay, I think that is getting to be pretty close to the shape that I want for my drawing. Another thing that I might do is when I get it to a certain level is grab something else that I know is perfectly round. Here I'm going to use one of these bowls here to sort of make the shape a little bit more refined. Remember, only use a wooden tool, the back of a butter knife, not the front with the teeth, the back of a butter knife for trimming with. Maybe a pencil. Never use one of these sharp tools or the front of the butter knife. Okay, so doing a quality check, I want to look for things like, is the height the same? Is the diameter of the circle the same? I kind of know this one is because I was using the bowl as my sort of, template for it. Is the angle looking the same this way as this? Is the bottom area similar here and here? I can refine the shape a little bit, and I can definitely smooth it a little bit more later, but I can't make major changes in the shape. I have to do that while it's still moist enough to mold and to work around. Darn close. Remember, keep one as your jig. That's your main one that all the other ones are going from. My clay is getting just a little bit dry now, so I'm going to go ahead and work a little bit of moisture into the surface of it. That'll help to prevent cracking. Not a lot. That was all just one little dip of my hand in there. But that'll be enough to help. Not making it all gushy with the water. Just a little bit. Just working that in. And making my surface a little bit more pliable again. That way I avoid a lot of cracking on the rim. My fingers are always looking for thick spots relative to thin spots. I think I can let these dry just a little bit more, and then I'll take maybe the loop tool and finish them off a little bit, let them dry again, and sand them. Then they'll be good to go.